Hey, welcome to the channel. So, we've made it to Rome for the first couple of days of our massive 2-month holiday overseas.
So if you want to see what we did for the first couple of days, stay tuned.
World, wake me up to another good morning, time to go. Oh, we are all looking for adventure. 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 We are all looking for adventure.
So we left our sleepy little town of Hervey Bay and we jumped on the Dash, or the Flying Pencil as it's better known. Not a fantastically large plane, but a nice short little flight of around 40 minutes down to Brisbane, which is always fun. When we got to Brisbane, we had quite a layover. So we were down in Brisbane for about 6 hours waiting for our flight, which was okay. We filled in a bit of time. We were able to have a bite to eat, have a bit of a look around. It took us a couple of hours before we could get into departures and check in. But once we did that, we had a bite to eat. And then we jumped on our plane for the flight to Dubai. We were on the A380, which was a great little plane. The only problem was all the screaming kids. But despite that, we made it to Dubai. Had a walk around. Now, this is a massive airport. We've been to Dubai before. Didn't realise it was quite as big as what it actually is. We had a wander around duty free in this area you can see at the moment. That's probably about half of one of the areas that we're in. Had a bit of a freshen up. Nothing like a bit of cologne to freshen you up a bit after a 14-hour flight, which was great. When we went and had a look at where our gate was, we realised we had to actually catch a train to the next section, which was just as big. Anyhow, once we got on the plane, it was a bit of a parking lot, lots of planes all waiting to take off. But we then had about a 6-hour flight to Rome, which went nice and smoothly. Emirates are great, love flying with them. And we ended up landing in Rome, ready for a short couple of days exploring before we jumped on the ship. So we're here on our first morning in Rome. We pretty much just have one day in Rome, so tomorrow we head off to the ship. But today we've got a big day planned. We're off to the Colosseum this morning. So we've done the Colosseum before. This time though we're going to go underground and have a look at the slave pits and pens where they kept the animals. Was reading, pretty amazing sort of place. They reckon 500,000 people were slaughtered in the Colosseum in its time, and probably around 100,000 animals. I was thinking about that. Obviously the animals were a lot harder to come by than the people. Anyhow, that'll be really cool to see that, and then we'll go up to the Roman Forum and have a look around there, and we'll see what else the day brings. We were pretty tired last night. We went out to our favourite restaurant, had this amazing burrata. This massive big cheese. It was way too much for the two of us. Not like the little burratas we get in Australia. This was a massive thing, bigger than a baseball kind of size, and when he cut it open it was full of baby bocconcini inside. It was absolutely delicious. The tomatoes, super sweet, really nice. And we had this great pasta with pork cheek, which was beautiful as well. Anyway, we had a great night's sleep last night, kind of recovered from the 30 hours that we spent in the air and waiting for connecting flights, and we're ready to go. Let's see what today brings. Oh, there she is.
Yay!
So here we are, walking down from our hotel. Hotel's only about 20 minutes away from the Colosseum. So 8:30 our tour is, so that means we'll have a fair bit of the day ahead of us. Was just checking before we left, and I need to get a new fact checker because I stuffed up. How many animals actually died, Sharon?
1 million.
Say that again.
1 million. You missed a few zeros.
Yeah, must have been wearing my glasses when I was reading whatever I was reading. I think I said before it was
100,000.
100,000. I was way off. So twice as many animals as people.
That's why I'm handling the money.
Yeah, probably that's a good plan. So as we're walking down to the Colosseum, we just remembered last time we were here, we were amazed by the parking. Everyone has tiny little cars here in Rome.
Might be stuffed.
Check out how close they park together. Looks pretty spectacular. Actually looked great last night while we were here. And it was all lit up. It was great. But every time we've been, which is only once before, so it sounds like there's been lots, but last time we were here there was heaps of construction work happening. And definitely is again. So
Restoration.
yeah, always doing restoration, and obviously something this old needs lots of repairs. Big concrete pump there doing something. So this little green kiosk is where most of the tours depart from, right near the train station and across the road from the Colosseum. When you do a tour, they do give you little radios to wear in your ears, which makes it great to hear because it's very crowded inside. Our tour guide was called Valerie. She had lots of great information. She told us about the statues and how there was pretty much none left. This was one of the few that were left, as they were pilfered to make cement. The stonework is amazing. A lot of these holes and things like that in the stonework are where they used to have metal brackets to hold them together, or sometimes where they actually lifted the stones into place. So we headed down beneath the Colosseum. At the bottom there was a show at the entrance to one of the tunnels. These tunnels connected the Ludus, which is where the gladiators trained, to the actual Colosseum. So as we explored further, we were super amazed by all of these archways and the engineering that went into them. Very skilled stonework. There was another area full of replica armour. This armour was from the different types of gladiators over the 500 years that the Colosseum was actually operating. Really interesting to see the different types of armour and the different types of weapons. So for example, this trident almost looks like a fishing spear from today. There was lots of carvings, which is how the archaeologists were able to discover a lot of the different armour types and weapons that were used. Definitely interesting. You are fairly rushed down here though. Anyhow, we walked further down into the depths of the Colosseum. It was really interesting. Apparently originally underneath was all timber, until they wanted to do some very heavy work upstairs with big animals and lakes and chariots and so forth, so they replaced the timber with stone. So these were actually some of the cages that they kept animals in, double story. They would often keep lions and tigers in these, pop them in these elevators. These elevators were run by slaves, and the animals would pop up at the floor of the Colosseum. There were 88 of these trapdoors where the animals would pop up to the cheers of the crowds. It was really interesting also seeing all of the aqueducts and drains underneath to get rid of a lot of those fluids, the blood, sweat, bodily fluids from the dead and dying, as well as just the animals that were kept underneath. The floor was all sand to help absorb all of those fluids. Apparently with those fluids as well, they were quite renowned for their effects, and so often the sweat and blood of gladiators was sold. Lots of interesting architecture. It was amazing to be walking on the herringbone floor where probably thousands of people had walked previously. We ended up walking up the stairs, and this is where the fairly short gladiators would ascend into the Colosseum before battle. They'd come out through a gate and then through an archway and walk into the Colosseum to the cheers of the crowds. It was really impressive to be able to walk those same steps that the gladiators did years ago. So this outer ring of the Colosseum here is where the gladiators would walk, raising their arms to the cheers and accolades of the crowds. We're just amazed with the atmosphere and thinking what it must have been like with 50,000 spectators in the stands all cheering on the show. We got to walk upstairs this time. We hadn't been up there before. Lots of different displays, very interesting stuff to look at. They had all the bones of the different animals that they'd found hidden beneath the Colosseum. Really interesting to see the different animals that they killed. Lots of different oil lamps. They burnt olive oil because apparently it burnt clean. And different pottery and whatnot that they found when they were excavating. There was models which gave a very different perspective. We were quite amazed at the original stairs that were still there. Obviously no workplace health and safety back then. Definitely spectacular from this level, and this is where the common folk and the women were able to watch from. Where Sharon's standing now has been filled in with concrete, but it was an aqueduct that was actually a toilet that people would go to when they needed to relieve themselves, and it basically had water running through all of the time. So after visiting upstairs, we went back down to the outer arches, and there used to be lots of markets down here. You could even see carvings in the stonework where they had a black market for wine. Next we went to the area where the Vestal Virgins were able to observe the games. This was very close to the Emperor, and the Vestal Virgins were obviously honoured greatly in Roman times. That pretty much ended our tour of the Colosseum, and from there we went to the Roman Forum. So this is the Arch of Titus. Now to get one of these arches, someone had to actually kill 5,000 enemies of Rome. From here we headed straight up Palpatine Hill, and this is where the Emperor's palace was. Now feasts were big in the Emperor's day, and they used to eat to the point of being sick, and then they would eat again. And the medicos of the time ordered that the Emperor needed to walk after these big feasts. So this garden was specifically built for the Emperor to exercise around a shaded perimeter. So the Romans used to like to show their wealth by having marble from around the world and building these ornate fountains. And this one is designed to replicate the shield of an Amazon warrior. From there we walked to the Circus Maximus, which could be seen from the Emperor's palace. Now this area for chariot races and whatnot could hold over 200,000 people, and some records say up to 400,000. Pretty amazing to think that many people would be there watching. So from here we explored more of the palace. It was great to see the ingenuity of the Romans. This area here has a fallen, sunken floor, and that's because this floor used to be heated, so it was hollow underneath. There was other amazing fountains. This one in the shape of a labyrinth. Now apparently the history to that is that it was based on the legend of the Minotaur. So after looking through the palace, we headed up to the palace gardens. Now from up here there was a fantastic view of the Forum. Now these gardens were famous for having lots of different plants from around the world, some of them still actually growing. They also had big bird cages that you can see here, with birds like peacocks and other interesting creatures. From up here there were fantastic views of the entire Roman Forum. Very interesting place. The entire place had actually been buried due to floods and has since obviously been excavated. We could go down and have a look at the house of the Vestal Virgins, which was right below the palace, as well as explore a whole lot of other interesting areas. While we're up here though, it was great to notice the ingenuity of the engineering up here in the gardens. All of this stonework to hold up gardens full of trees really was quite spectacular. We headed down then actually into the Forum, having a look at different things like grottos that were man-made, not real grottos. Running right through the centre of the Roman Forum is the Sacred Road, and this is the road that returning warriors would walk through, having big parades. Either side of the Sacred Road were temples to various gods. You can see one here that still has the patinaed brass door. Further along we could see the pens or small pens where they would keep slaves at night. Tiny, must have been a miserable life. We could also see where on top of ruins after the flood they'd built a church. Down from below where the Vestal Virgin's house was, you could appreciate the engineering that went into the gardens of the imperial palace. We were also able to see the funeral pyre of Julius Caesar, where his body was actually burnt. Definitely an interesting place. and we were able to wander around once our tour had finished and explore further. So we highly recommend getting a guide if you're going to do the Colosseum and the Roman Forum. After we left, we did a bit more exploring. Of course, we ended up at the Trevi Fountain. Over 280 fountains in Rome. Trevi's probably the most famous, and one to be wary of, as a lot of people get pickpocketed here. Anyway, we threw our obligatory coin in. 1 coin means you'll come back again, 2 means you'll meet your soulmate, and if you throw 3, it means you'll marry your soulmate. Anyhow, hope you've enjoyed this first video. If you have, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification button. Otherwise, escape the everyday yourselves. Cheers.